Okay, is this visible, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay, so now just understand first the concept, then we will discuss about the VB or about the subject. So, for first of all, what happens? Let's say, let's consider any software. Let's talk about the Facebook. Let's talk about the Facebook. So, very first, when you open the browser, first you need to enter the URL, right? And when you enter the URL, it gives you one page, and that is your login page, right? In this login page, you have to enter your ID and your password, and then you press to the login or OK button. But before this, suppose you are already registered, then it is fine. But if you are not registered user, in that case you need to register first, right?
yes, ma'am.
You need to register first, and when you register, what happens? Like name, then date of birth, then gender, and so many other things you need to enter. Now what happens when you click, and here you will have a register button or a submit button. Now what happens when you add the data? mm, when you add the data, let's say XYZ, let's say 12 12 2000. Now gender, let's say F. Now what happens when you add this data, and then after registering, when you do login, means after registration you do login, you will enter your ID, whatever the ID it is, whatever the password it is, and then you click on the login. But the question is when it is actually checking your data, because this data must be somewhere in the system. So for that, here you have, this is your front end, and here we have a back end. So what happens in the back end, in the database, you will have a table, and this table may contain multiple columns. Like it may contain your ID, then name, then date of birth, then gender, and all the other fields. Now what happens when you click on the register? When you click on the register, we fire the query. We fire the query like SQL statement. We fire all these things you will learn in the database. And when you click on the register, all your data will be stored in here in the table, like whatever the name it is, XYZ, then date of birth, then gender, and some particular ID. Let's say this is 101. Let's say 101 is your ID. Now after this, so it means that your this form and this table both are connected, right? Both are connected with each other. Are you getting, guys? Am I getting?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now you should understand that this is called the connectivity. And this connectivity you will learn in the VB. How to store the data from front end to back end. I repeat, how to store the data from front end to back end, that you will learn in the DBMS. In your DBMS. So here you can see that there is a connection. When you are learning the VB, means here you will learn how to design the GUI. GUI is nothing but your front end. When you will learn the DBMS, you will learn the backend, means how to store the data from front end to backend. And when we talk about the OSED, so OSED will tell you, or OSED will give you an idea before actually implementing this thing. What is the process, or what is the requirement, or how to design or how to prepare the prototype, that you will learn in the OSED. So in short, OSED, VB, and your DBMS, all the subjects are linked with each other, and you need to learn each and everything very carefully. Why? The reason is, at the end, ultimately, what is actually our goal? Our goal is to develop an application. Ultimately, once you will learn everything, when you're done with your graduation or whatever, when you will go in the industry, ultimately, what will be your goal? Someone may wants to be a software engineer or a software developer, right? Someone wants to be a DBA, that is database administrator. Someone may wants to be a system analyst, right? So whatever the role you are choosing, you need to learn everything. That first thing, how to design the front end, and your front end is nothing but your GUI. Second thing you need to learn is your backend. Backend means your database. And the third is your connectivity, or the blueprint. Better we call it a blueprint. And this will help you to create the prototype or anything. Now, okay, is this clear, everyone? यहाँ तक सबको
Yes,
समझ में
ma'am.
आया?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, this is the thing which we are going to learn. Means at the end of this semester, you will be able to create a small application. At least a small application you can create. Okay. Now, okay. When we talk about the GUI, now just tell me one thing. Let's say that here is my registration form. Fine, we call it a form. So when I am designing my GUI, first I have mentioned gender, then surname, then age, then address, then name. So guys, is it the proper order of input?
No, ma'am.
Is
No,
it
ma'am.
proper input? No, it is not.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
It is not proper input. Next thing, let's say that for name, gender, address, for everything, can I take a same text box? This we call the text box. This is the text box. These are the text box. So can I take same text box or a same size of text box for?
No,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. May I know the reason?
मैम सबका अलग अलग होता है, मतलब जेंडर में हमको नंबर बॉक्स लेना पड़ेगा,
Yes.
फिर सरनेम में हमको मतलब छोटा सा टेक्स्ट बॉक्स लेना पड़ेगा, एड्रेस में हमको लॉन्ग टेक्स्ट लेना पड़ेगा.
हाँ मैम, जेंडर में रेडियो बटन ले सकते हैं बिकॉज एक ही सिलेक्ट हो सकता है.
Very good, very good. So it means what? That when you are designing your GUI, you should know all the components, right? This we call the components. Components like when you want to input something, we need a text box. ये सब I think HTML में आया था, right? थोड़ा थोड़ा.
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ बस तो the same way radio button you have radio button, so all the components you should know, and along with the component names also you should know the properties and methods of each component or object or tool, anything. And all these things we are going to learn in the VB. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is just a rough idea that why we need to learn VB and DBMS and OSID and everything. So after this, let's start with the VB. Okay, is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the name of your subject, visual and window programming. See, basically, when we talk about the programming, okay, when we talk about the programming, so also we need to learn some words. We should be familiar with the terminology. So let's understand some terms first. Um, okay, one more thing, window. The reason of the using this term window is because that in this specifically in this subject we are going to learn the VB.NET, and VB.NET is basically we use for the desktop type application. Type application, there are many different types of applications are there, like desktop application, then web application, then mobile application, and for each type of application we have a different technology, like VB.NET, ASP.NET is there, Java is there, so many different technologies are there, and based on your requirement you choose the technology. So here we have certain few definitions that it's very easy actually. Can you see the screen, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the very first is a program, and I think we have used these terms many times. C programs, C++ programs, right? So
Yes.
what is program? A set of instructions? Simple?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so it's a series of instruction or the set of instruction. It's very simple. Then what is programming? When you write the program, that process of writing the program we call programming. Right? It's easy. And the person who is writing the program or who is doing the programming, also we call them software developers. We call them programmers, and they normally design the sorry, design the system and then they write the code for the same. Then application means software, system, anything, collection of one or more programs. Can anyone explain this term, that application is nothing but a collection of one or more programs? Why we call more programs?
मैम
Anyone?
अलग अलग कंपोनेंट के लिए अलग अलग प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं ना.
Can you give example?
मतलब अगर हमको रजिस्ट्रेशन फॉर्म बनाना है तो उसके लिए एक अलग होगा. जब कोई भी एप्लीकेशन खोलते हैं तो उसके साइन अप के लिए, फिर वो एप्लीकेशन जो काम करती है उसके लिए एक अलग प्रोग्राम होगा, उसके बैकएंड में जो काम होता है उसके लिए अलग प्रोग्राम होगा.
Who is this? Who is answering?
आगम मैम.
Agam, can you give some easy examples so everyone can understand?
हाँ मैम, अगर देखो व्हाट्सएप है तो अगर हम व्हाट्सएप ऑन करते हैं तो उसके पहले हमको नंबर डालना पड़ता है. तो
Yes.
वो डायरेक्ट डेटाबेस में स्टोर होता है तो उसके लिए एक प्रोग्राम हो जाता है. फिर हम जब उस खोलते हैं तो मतलब जो चैट बॉक्स होते हैं तो उसमें हम किसी को मैसेज करते हैं तो वो मैसेजिंग के लिए एक अलग प्रोग्राम हो जाता है कि वो सर्वर से पास होगा। फिर उसमें क्यूआर कोड आता है तो उसके लिए अलग प्रोग्राम होता है। इस तरह से अलग स्टोरी के लिए अलग प्रोग्राम होता है।
Perfect. So it means that when we talk about the application, see, WhatsApp is a good example. Other example we can take like a Facebook or a Gmail. So when we say Facebook, so registration page is a single page, but for that single page, I need to write a program. When I say login, but for the login, I need to write the program. When I say friend list, for that, I need to write a program. Means ultimately, what I'm doing, I'm collecting more programs, one on one and more programs, and after combining all the programs, I'll get the application, right? And this application basically performs some specific task. Easy, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. And the last term is a program development, that a process of using a programming language or a programming environment to build software application is called a program development. As we have already discussed this thing, the development, like when you decide your GUI, you design your forms, you create your database, then you link everything. So whole this process of writing a program, then design or creating the database, all together we call a program development. Clear, guys? Any query? Any query?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So it's a very simple definition thing. Okay, so now the main topic, that is our Visual Basic VB.NET. It's just an introduction of VB, that it's a programming environment to build programs for the Windows operating system or any operating system that supports Microsoft's .NET architecture. Actually, Visual Basic is a product of Microsoft. Is a product
Yes.
of Microsoft. Yes. So of course, it is. We can develop the application or we can use it with the Windows operating system, and for any other operating system we need some other settings. Do we have anyone with Ubuntu in their system? Anyone?
I'm not in the system I'm currently logged into, but I have a laptop sitting beside me. It has a virtual machine with Ubuntu.
Okay, I just wanted that if you have experienced this Ubuntu and Microsoft.NET, then what is your experience? That's the reason. But fine. Okay, so it's easy. Like VB.NET is a product of Microsoft. .NET has a series of technologies that allows almost any type of program to run in a common environment. When we say a common environment, actually, पहले क्या था पता है कि if you have noticed, when you have downloaded Visual Studio, it allows you to write or to develop an application using any language. Like you can use ASP.NET, you can use VB.NET, you can use C#, any language. But in the earlier version, what was that? Ki once I have opened the environment in VB, I cannot use C# language. Now it is giving this facility that you can use all the languages together in a single development program. Like certain forms or a certain components I want to design in C#, I can. If certain components or certain forms I want to design in a VB.NET, I can. So it's a that's why now they call it a common environment. Then this is just an general knowledge thing. It's a 7th version of Microsoft's VB programming. VB programming language evolved from the basic. This is simple general knowledge thing. Allows you to create program software for the Windows OS and web. Yes. So it allows you to develop the applications or the softwares which you can use for the Windows OS and the web. Okay, so this is, yes.
मैम लाइक विजुअल स्टूडियो में तो पहले जब वो विजुअल बेसिक था तब उसमें तो स्टार्टिंग में तो सिर्फ बेसिक के प्रोग्राम ही हम बना सकते थे ना, बेसिक लैंग्वेज के.
Basic, you mean this basic? You are this basic?
यस
Sorry.
मैम. हाँ, ये बिगिनर्स ऑल पर्पस सिंबॉलिक इंस्ट्रक्शन कोड.
हाँ, ये स्पेलिंग गलत है. हाँ, एक्चुअली बहुत शुरुआत में एक्चुअली ये बेसिक लैंग्वेज थी, बट इसको नाम दिया विजुअल बेसिक. व्हेन माइक्रोसॉफ्ट लॉन्च दिस थिंग, VISUL, Visual Basic, the reason was the basic was a DOS based thing, right? And
Yes.
Visual Basic, it gives you the visual, like you have form, you have command button, you have
हाँ,
radio.
वो मॉड्यूल जैसा था ना.
Exactly.
हाँ,
Even
मतलब
when I developed my first application, it was VB6 around
हाँ.
in the year 2002. I first developed this application in 2002 VB by using VB6. So now it has like very advanced features in the.
यस मैम, अब तो आईडी ही बन गया है.
बहुत yes, बहुत.
मैम बिकॉज आई आस्क्ड दिस बिकॉज मैम हमने एक्चुअली स्कूल में हमें सिखाया था विजुअल बेसिक, बट वो तो कितना पुराना वर्जन था, इसीलिए आई जस्ट वांटेड टू से कि वो कुछ और तो नहीं सीखे हम.
नहीं, the same thing, but now they have now we have advanced version of. इसीलिए मैंने बोला ना कि पहले ये होता था कि once you have entered in the environment, you can only use the VB. Like from the start menu, you had to choose like which language you want to use, VB, C#, ESP. But now, after entering into the development area, now you can decide that okay, sometimes I want to use VB, in other module I want to use C#. So it's very advanced things.
Yes ma'am.
Yes, guys. Anything else? Any question, guys? No questions? Okay. So here we have some points which you just need to remember, like programming, and this is not, I don't think so that I need to explain all these things. These are the general knowledge type things. I'll share this material with you. Just read it. Yes, this is something important. Applications. So guys, when we talk about the applications, how many different types of applications we have? So we have window application. Am I audible, guys?
Yes ma'am.
Okay. We have window application, then we have a web application, console application, then we have a components, web services. There is a difference between web services and web application and window services. So don't get confused between these terms like window application and window service. Web application and web service, and then we have a console and components. So let's see what is the difference between all these words. So see, this is a window application. Example of a window application means where you have forms, when you have a interface, or this is basically we use for the desktop type. Desktop application like your Tally, right? Tally is there, then your MS Office is there. And let's say suppose some organization like school, college or any travel agency, so उन सबके पास खुद का software होता है. We call it customized software, right? So customized software. So all this we call window application. And in window application, basically we have forms. This is form. This is your ये सब हम सीखेंगे that किस तरह से ये सब बनाना है. But yeah, desktop application basically we call them the Windows application. And one good thing is, guys, that you don't need to bound yourself while you answer the questions related these topics, because this is a generalized topics, so you can use your knowledge as well. Like I have just said that desktop application and Tally and MS Office are the examples, but suppose you have more knowledge, of course you can add in your answer. So these are the general terms. Understood everyone?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The application, it's very easy, and in VB we will learn each and everything, like this thing, then all these components, these names, everything we will learn. So gradually you will get an idea that what is actually when we say window application. Okay, then we have a web application. So see, when we say the web application means something which we open in the browser, or the system or the software which we open in the browser, and we need internet connection. Of course, when we say browser, of course we need internet. So that is web application. So I don't think so that I need to explain it in detail, because everyone is aware about the web and website and browser and internet. Anyone wants to add something? Web application, or if you want, do you want to ask anything? It's easy, right?
मैम आजकल तो वो प्रोग्रेसिव वेब एप्स भी होती है ना, जो नॉर्मल एप्स की तरह इंस्टॉल हो सकती है.
यस यस, वो भी होता है. यस यस. Okay, so this is a web application, and then we have a console application. Console application means it works with the DOS. What is the full form of DOS? Hello.
Basic operating system.
Don't ask, just answer.
मैम डैनियल ऑफ सर्विस.
चलो देखते हैं कितने कितने आंसर्स आते हैं. चलो, DOS.
Disk operating system.
Disk operating system.
Disk operating.
मैम डैनियल ऑफ सर्विस.
वो क्या है?
मैम मैं भी डिस्क
क्या?
ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम.
हाँ,
Disk
डिस्क
operating
ऑपरेटिंग
system.
अभी किसी ने कुछ और बोला ना?
हाँ, डिनायल ऑफ सर्विस कहते हैं.
अच्छा, फिलहाल हम उसको जनरलाइज रखते हैं और जो सही है वही रखते हैं. तो yes, it's a disk operating system, right? It's a disk operating system. Okay, so basically when we say the console application means this type of application we use when we want to communicate directly with the operating system. Means when you are installing some component, so that is required, that it requires the direct communication with the operating system. If you remember in the comp, नहीं, आप लोगों के सिलेबस में वो नहीं था. ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम नहीं, वो आप लोगों के सिलेबस में नहीं था. बट नॉर्मली व्हाट हैपेंस in your system, when suppose let's say this is your pen drive, right? And we know that when we transfer, and this here you have the hard disk, and here you have your operating system. I'm just assuming all these things. So what happens, guys, when we insert the pen drive to copy the data into the hard disk, but it cannot go directly to the hard disk. The reason is, first pen drive needs to go to the operating system. It will go and ask to the operating system that can I access your hard disk. If operating system will allow it, then only we can go to the hard disk. And all these things happen using the bus. Remember data bus, address bus,
Yes, ma'am.
status bus, signal bus. So all these things happens using the bus. So when you want to communicate with the operating system, you need console application. And talking with or communicating with the operating system clearly means that you want to access the system. And when you want to access the system, because operating system is the master, you need to take the permission. And for that, we need console type application, which we run in the DOS environment. Understood? Everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is console. Then we have Windows services. Yes, of course. देखा ये किसी ने use किया है services.msc?
Yes, ma'am.
बहुत बार होगा.
Yes, ma'am.
So all the applications which you need to run your Windows, that we call the Windows services, right? Like suppose DHCP client है मेरा नेट नहीं चल रहा है तो DHCP client को रन करना पड़ेगा, DNS सर्वर को रिस्टार्ट करना पड़ेगा. All these applications which is directly connected with the Windows or operating system, we need Windows services. Also, you can create this type of Windows services. You can develop this type of Windows services in the VB.NET. So Windows services, then we have a web services. So again, the same thing, like this is you are a customer, and when you hit the URL, when you enter the URL and when you hit the enter button, so ultimately what you are doing, you are trying to access that particular service from the server, right? This is your browser, and here when you say www. let's say Netflix, for example. So now what happens when you hit the enter, so what you are trying to do, you are trying to access this website, but this website is somewhere on the server, right? So to take your request or to send your request to the server, we need certain applications, because ये जो पूरा path है वो सीधा सीधा नहीं होगा. In between, so many hops are there, so many routers, networks, and so many other things are there. So to reach from this location to this location, so this type of things we call it a web services. So normally when we say web services, of course we need internet, and all these services are basically for the server sites. Any. So in a one word, if you want to use this or explain this, simply you can say protocol. So when you want to use any particular protocol, you need a web service like HTTP, right, or a FTP, any protocol. So when you want to use the any protocol service, you need a web service. Understood? Any website. Here we have example of airline tickets on various sites. So ultimately what you are doing when you enter source and destination, so ultimately you are asking for the service, and that we call the web service. Understood, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Easy?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And last we have components. So components for other programs to use a component functions as a pre-built program that can be used by other programs or applications to complete a task or a process. You have to give me example, huh? I'm just reading. Components have a programmatic interface rather than user interface. Programmatic interface defines the method in which other programs or application should send and receive the data to run the components. Can you give an example and explain? Component. I'll give you example at the end, but first you tell me what do you understand by this word. Here you have example if you want to see.
Components generally means parts
Parts. Okay. Can you give example?
मैम फॉर एग्जांपल इफ देयर इज अ पीसी देन उसमें डिफरेंट पार्ट्स होते हैं मदरबोर्ड सीपीयू एसएसडी रैम सो
Hmm. Yes.
everything is needed everything has its own function to work for the whole computer to work.
Perfect. So you are talking about the hardware components, right?
Yes ma'am.
Okay, fine. Anything else, guys? Here you have example. See, inventory component, end of month report. What do you understand by this? You can read points and try to understand. Anyone? Okay. Oh, okay. So Jimmy talked about the hardware components, right? So let's say that I have only two pen drive slots in my computer, but I want more. So can I get the extension or can I add new ports in my system? Is it possible? Hello.
Depends ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, of course it depends. Of course it depends. But if everything is fine, then can I extend my system? Can I upgrade my system?
Yes, ma'am.
We can upgrade. So when you are upgrading your system, so the part that we call the component. A simple example, लेटेस्ट वन, पता है जीमेल में पहले मीटिंग का ऑप्शन नहीं आता था, पैंडेमिक के बाद आने लगा है साइड में, right? So that meeting option or a meeting is a new component which was not there, but after the requirement, after the need, they created, or we normally call it a pre-built program, right? So a component function as a pre-built program that can be used by other programs. So my Google Meet or the Gmeet is a component जो मैंने बनाया, but now I have a Gmail, so I need to incorporate both this thing. But Gmail is an individual application. So what is Google Meet? Google Meet is a component. So Google Meet is there in the Gmail as well, and also you'll find this Google Meet in your calendar, Google Calendar. The component is an external things which normally we add depending on the requirement. So like see, okay, one more thing, one more point is there. Components work behind the scene. So this Google Meet or this we talked about the components which we normally use, but certain components or a few components we cannot see. For example, okay, suppose your Gmail is open and you are doing some other work in other tab and you get the email. Do you need to refresh it to see the mail, or automatically you will get the mail in your inbox? Automatically. It means what? That there is certain component, there is certain feature is there which work behind the scene. Means you don't need to trigger anything for that. It works automatically, and that we call the component. And this component, when we talk about the Gmail, so it is a timer. And here we have example of an inventory component. Inventory component, why inventory component? Because in each and every software, it is not necessary that inventory component is there. But suppose at the end or in the last or in between, you want to add the inventory component in your application, you can add it. It is like पता है जब जीएसटी नया नया आया था तब काफी लोगों को अपना सॉफ्टवेयर अपग्रेड करना पड़ा था, right? The reason was GST feature was not there, but जब उसकी requirement आई, then they added that new component. So inventory component का example भी उसी तरह है कि पहले नहीं था, like फिर अभी तक ऐसा था कि भाई सिर्फ सेल और परचेज आई वाज मेंटेनिंग, बिल जनरेट होता है, दैट इज फाइन, बट नाउ आई वांट टू मेंटेन द इन्वेंटरी, सो नाउ माय इन्वेंटरी बिकम द कंपोनेंट. अंडरस्टूड?
Yes, ma'am.
यस. और ये जो टर्म है रिपोर्ट, दैट वी विल डिस्कस लेटर ऑन, अभी समझ में नहीं आएगा. This thing we will discuss later on. In OSET we will discuss this thing. VB में भी करेंगे, but OSET में ज्यादा होगा. Understood everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Any
Yes,
doubts?
ma'am.
Sorry.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So it was all about the introduction of Visual Basic, and gradually we will start learning new things in VB, and in practical ma'am will teach you how to create, how to design the forms and create the small applications.
Yes, ma'am.